Yo, make some noise for Quest. He's amazing. Makes me feel religious out here.
So what we see in Genesis 1 verse 28, right? This is the first marriage that's ever been created, right? Between Adam and Eve, right? And so you see in Genesis 1:28, and God blessed them. This is what it says. And God blessed them, Adam and Eve, right? And God said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth, right? Then he goes on to say, have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. In other words, God is telling them to have dominion over everything, right? He's telling them to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. Get this, it's long before the 10 commandments even get here. So that's his very first commandment. There's nothing in there that says I'm suggesting to you, nothing. He says, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, and subdue the earth, right? I realized that, and let me just say this first. They were going to be able to do that because they were in relationship with God. And there was nothing that they were not going to be able to do as long as they were in relationship with God. And I feel that that's the same thing, the same principle that is here for us right now. Let me just say this. You can't be in relationship with God and not produce something, right? That's what it says. Be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. Right? So in other words, well, let me just say this. You're going to go through challenges and difficulties. And they're the kind of challenges and difficulties that God is going to introduce into the relationship to make you better in whatever shape or form. You're just going to be better. Right? So there's no way for you to be in relationship with him and not produce something. Those same challenges and difficulties that he introduces into the relationship with him have to produce something, because that's just who he is. He is a creator. He is a sustainer. He, like for real, he just brings things into existence, right? I'm saying that the marital relationship, because it is a reflection of our relationship with God, is the same kind of thing, right? Paul says in Philippians, I want to say 3 and verse 14, I think it is. He says, I press towards the mark of a higher calling. So in other words, as you're in relationship with God, when you reach a certain plateau, right? I press towards the mark of a higher calling. So now I've reached this plateau and now I'm pressing towards the mark of an even higher calling. And then when I get to that plateau, I'm pressing towards the mark of even a higher calling, right? I'm saying that the marital relationship is the same thing. Why? Because it's a reflection of our relationship with God. Now, if we're producing something in our relationship with God, in our marriage, we should be producing something as well. You should be producing something as a husband and wife. Why? Because the very first commandment says that you should. It said, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, and subdue the earth. You need to be producing something. Now, when Faith and I first got together, right, the first thing that we produced was children. Now, granted, the relationship is not going to be peaches and cream all the way through. We're going to be faced with difficulties and challenges even as we raise our children. But if we're in relationship with God, as we're in relationship with each other, with me, with her, it should be producing something. So somewhere along the line where I was less forgiving, I should be more forgiving now. I should be more compassionate. My critical thinking should get better. I should get better in some way, shape, or form. In other words, outside of just producing children, I should produce a better version of me. I should be producing something. She should be producing something. We should be producing something together. Why? Because in our relationship with God, there's no way for us to be together and not produce something, right? I'm saying to you, matter of fact, get a pen and paper. I want you to write a couple of questions down. As you're moving through your marital relationship, here's a couple of questions you should ask yourself. Am I in relationship with God? Am I saying that it's necessary for you to navigate through marriage? No, but I am saying that if you want it to be phenomenal, then you might want to be in connection with the one who created this whole thing. So that's number one. Am I in relationship with God? That's number one. Number two, is my relationship with God producing something? Am I getting better in some way, shape, or form? All right. So that's number one. Number two. Number three, ask yourself, is my marital relationship producing something? So those are the first three questions, right? Now, in connection with the third question, right, I want you to ask these things. If you're not producing something, you should be asking yourself, outside of, am I producing something? If I'm not producing something, what do I need to take away from my relationship that's preventing me from producing something? That's question number 4. What do I need to take away from my relationship that is preventing me from producing something, right? And if you don't need to take anything away, then ask yourself, what do I need to add to my relationship in order to produce something? Listen, guys, every round goes higher and higher. And if you're not producing something as a couple, you should be producing something as a couple, right? That's the question you should be asking yourself. That's what I want you to concentrate on this week. Remember, the marital relationship is so much more important than who you are as individuals. Remember what I always say, from shaky to good, from good to great, ultimately we want phenomenal. But phenomenal don't just happen. It does not just happen, right? It takes work, specifically on asking yourself the question, am I producing something? And if you're not, then start moving towards doing some things, either taking away from your relationship or adding to your relationship such that you can produce something. Yup, produce something.